What's up, friends? Welcome to SPDM TV. My name is Mike, part of the SPDM crew, and I watch a lot of TV. We talk about various TV topics, reviews, and general appreciation of TV past and new. You can follow me on Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, and Serialized at MLHilty2452 to see what all I'm watching. This week, we're going to be talking about Scrubs Season 2, and I'm bringing back two friends of the podcast. We've got Aaron Lashbrook and Brian Larsen back again to talk about Scrubs Season 2. Welcome, gents. How's it going?
Good. How you doing?
I'm fine, I guess.
I'm doing well too, Mike. Glad you and Brian are both doing well. This is Aaron's voice.
I appreciate you identifying that. We're off to a great start already. Boy, and it's Super Bowl Sunday, and none of us are really interested in the game. So I'm glad that I could talk about something that I actually want to talk about, which is season 2 of Scrubs. So we did a recap of season 1, and I thought the format of that went really well. So looking forward to getting our general thoughts on season 2 and as we continue on with the series. So Aaron, let's start with you. So end of season 1 happens, and we got Jordan kind of just obliterating everyone to hell with revealing pretty much everybody's dirty little secrets and all that shit. Give me your general thoughts on what you thought of season 2 right off the bat.
Yeah, spectacular ending to season 1. Awesome. As far as like good old classic television going, it's not a death, but it's super close to a cliffhanger, or as much as you can get. Like you said, her just blowing up everything. Loved it. Season 2, solid season, I think, because cryptically, before you start recording, you had dropped a couple little nuggets to maybe as you felt about it, something. So I really like season 2. I like how it fleshed out a lot of the characters, set up some or expanded on some reoccurring tropes that would run throughout. Yeah, it set it up as, this is going to be a long-term thing when I saw season 2, and it's kind of already come up in our text messages back and forth setting up tonight. But the first episode, you knew, it's gonna be great. Or it reminded you of this was back when 22 episodes, half hour each, you had to watch it every week, or maybe record it depending on your recording capabilities. Maybe if you had a TiVo, if not, you might have been shit out of luck. So it was really, if you wanted to watch a show, you had to show up for it. And it as soon as the first episode came on, and you're like, yep, I'm gonna be here, every week. So that would be my opening thoughts on the opening episode of season 2.
Got it. Brian?
Yeah, you really see how the show is gaining traction. The writers are, writing the characters much better. Everybody is kind of getting their niche in the group dynamic. The characters JD and Elliot and Dr. Cox obviously are the main, and Carla. We've got the main four. Then you got the side characters are all getting more involved with Kelso and the janitor and Laverne. So, and then Aaron kind of alluded to the guest stars for this whole season. Some of them get set up to guest star for several seasons, and then some are just some one and dones. But it always shows the show how it's getting better when the names that they're signing and they're getting involved in are bigger. Some of them like Heather Locklear, she was on Spin City at the end, which was Bill Lawrence. So, he's done that throughout his career where he's brought people from the past stuff that he's done and brought them in. But you can just really see the show is getting to the point where it's really, you can't miss it. And you make time to be there and watch those episodes, like Aaron said, because not everyone had TiVo.
And you could have been using a VCR. They had recording programmable capabilities by this time.
Oh, you big proponent of TiVo, I see, Brian. Good for you. So I'm gonna go out on a limb and actually say this might be my favorite season. And the reason why this is my favorite season is because I feel like this is the last season before things start to go really off the rails in terms of being like, I think with JD in particular, where the manicness starts to become more elevated in season 3 and season 4. There's nothing wrong with that. It's like a slight detractor for me, but not to the point where it's like annoying or unwatchable. And I felt like this was the last season where JD was a little bit more grounded and a little bit more subtle. And I think that's why I like this season a lot, because this is doing everything that you need a season 2 to do. You need to, hit your groove in terms of your comedy, your chemistry with your coworkers. You're pushing somewhat of a story forward as well. And there's two in particular this season that I really liked in terms of where the story is going. And we'll get to those, but I also watched the DVDs of this pretty religiously, and the second disc of the DVD has a lot of my favorite episodes of the entire series on it. So, like the episode where JD and Elliot become sex buddies, the ones where JD starts dating the gift shop girl, the different things like that. Plus, the music in this season is really great too. So I really like that. And you mentioned the guest stars as well. There's, Heather Locklear was mentioned. Dick Van Dyke shows up in this, which is like, holy shit, Dick Van Dyke is still alive. And yeah, that's awesome. So I really appreciated a lot of what this season did. And I think for me, I think one of the reasons why I like this season is that Dr. Cox actually kind of grows a little bit as a character. And I really like that. So yeah, I think I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that season 2 might be my favorite season. If not, it's pretty high up there in terms of which one I like the best.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Supported with good reasoning. I like it a lot.
Were you expecting me to trash this season?
I kind of did, by the way. Before we started recording, you were like, I just by what you were like, we're gonna talk about it, and I have some thoughts, or something like that. You mean, like,
Yeah,
"Ooh,
I kind of did say it in a smug way like that. Like this season sucks. No, no, no. I actually really like this season a lot. And this, yeah, it has a lot of my favorite moments of the entire series. So I'm actually really excited to talk season 2 of Scrubs. Brian, you were about to say something.
I was going to say the same thing. I got the impression that you weren't a fan of it from how we kind of led into it, and it was like favorite season. Okay, cool. Because it was like I don't know where we're going to go with this.
We don't get to me like not being a fan of certain seasons of Scrubs until like season 6 and 7, and those have reasons, because those were impacted by the writer strike, and those were impacted by a lot of uncertainty about what the future of the show is going to hold. So, and even so, just because I don't like it as much as the earlier seasons doesn't change the fact that I still like it enough to tolerate that sounds horrible, to tolerate it, but yeah, I still enjoy the later seasons. But this this season, just, I think, like, it, because in addition to JD as well, Elliot also is somebody who a little bit more grounded, a little bit less neurotic. And seasons 3 and 4, that's when they kind of let Elliot completely go, and it goes a little off the rails. But again, I think that's why I kind of appreciate this season a lot more than all the other seasons. So all right, we've got our opening thoughts. Let's go through some storylines, and I've got a handful here that want to get your thoughts about. So let's talk. Let's get right into the season 2 premiere, which takes place literally moments after the season 1 finale. So we get Jordan torpedoing everybody in the hospital and kind of just dealing with the aftermaths of that. So, Brian, any thoughts on that opening episode?
So well done. We got a lot of tension between several different people. We got to get it resolved, but it doesn't happen quickly. We got Turk and JD who they can't lock up. He's wearing tennis shoes. So it was just like some of the stuff he's worried about. We're supposed to sleep head to toe. It's like you're still lining up, but the overkill song, subtly in the background throughout, and Colin Hay guest appearance. We got to get Turk and Carla back together, and JD, he's pushing for it. He has that little meeting where he tricks them all to get together, and Carla, I just one of the best things. It was, and Cox nails it. She's like, well, you're just mad because you still love your wife, and he loses his shit. I have killed for less, and I will again. And just so, but then the whole thing is it's all going to smooth over, relax, and everything's going to get back to normal. It's just going to take a little time.
Yeah, yeah, and because they're not going to spend the entire season fighting, even though a lot of sitcoms have done that before, and a lot of sitcoms have done that since. But I'm glad that they, for the most part, they got a lot of the situations resolved in this first episode. And you're right. He is known as the Troubadour, as he is known on the credits on IMDb. But Colin Hayes. He's what, singer of Men at Work, right?
Yes, Men at Work.
What a random person to bring in. So that song was a lot of fun, and I just love Dr. Cox just flipping out at the end on the guitar. I really appreciated that. Aaron, any thoughts on opening episode of season 2?
Yeah, Brian touched on it, how they used the music, and it came through in the opening, and Pope showing up in different places, the closet and the morgue, and how the song just kept coming back. It was great. But also, Brian already touched on how you got the sense that even though it was tense, it was going to work out. Especially with, and JD and Turk really weren't ever fighting, but just how their relationship was kind of like the anchor for the whole thing. And, how they could be so close and not worrying about, locking in, or, it was good. It was well done. There was, to me, I'd say there was tension without anxiety. Some of the little things they try that, maybe don't work as far as, and it might not even be until the second episode, but JD's kind of having one of his daydreams, and like people are floating by, and you can tell they're like on carts or whatever being pulled down the hall, and you never see their feet. Is that in this episode? Is that in episode 1? Am I saying? Just talking about how it might, like I said, I might be confusing episodes, but I liked what they were going for, even though it didn't really work because everybody looked too tall or whatever they were standing on, but things like that. I liked them in the whole series. They're not afraid to try something.
Yeah.
In later seasons, the whole, my front porch. What a weird concept, but they make it work in a few different episodes. So
they did. I noticed the opening. They do a new opening for this one, a little bit longer, and they're going through different areas, a little brighter. And I don't know why they did it for like 2 episodes and then went back to the original. It was a little weird.
You gotta occasionally change it up. I mean, yeah, I got nothing on that one, but yes, I did notice that as well. That was weird. And I wonder who at the network pulled the plug on that one, be like, no, we got to go back to the old one. We got to revert back, which I didn't think it was that bad.
Well, and there's different things, like when it ends up in syndication, don't they usually chop it up anyway, like make it as short as possible so they can get an extra 2 commercials in the half hour and stuff like that?
Probably. Yeah, because money is definitely a thing. So,
well, yeah, like TBS does that with Friends. They're rolling the credits and the new open are overlapping.
Right.
So,
and a third commercial sometimes. So
yeah,
you've got the intro, the extra, and the commercial going on.
I didn't realize that, TBS was so hard up for commercials, or that whoever was advertising for, like, during the Friends slot, needed to get that extra commercial in. But hey, it is what it is, and ad revenue drives network TV. So, good for them, I guess. So one of the big things to note in the early part of the season is that that your core 3 group, so JD, Turk, and Elliot, they've transitioned to residents. So can someone explain to me what the difference is between an intern and a resident? Is it just like or is it just like year 2 of being a doctor? Or I don't understand what the difference is between an intern and a resident.
I do
It
not.
just has to do with getting your work supervised, co-signed, those kind of things, being able to actually prescribe, write orders yourself. Those, the higher up you go, the more responsibility that you get. So residents usually, as you see, I don't think in this season they end up getting them, but you end up getting some students, uh, things like that. But I don't think it goes as quickly as like 1 year. I think I think it takes a little bit longer than that, but I'm not
Mm,
exactly sure.
okay. So you sounded like you knew what you were talking about. So I
I
appreciated the
can do
fact that
that.
you tried to do that. But so yeah, that's a big part of this season where they're transitioning into residence. And I don't know, you do see some confidence building with all of them, which is good because you see them in season one adjusting to being interns at this hospital. And season two, and even this goes into season three as well, that you just continue to see more and more growth for them as a doctor. And I'm so glad that the show continues to hone in on that they're all very good doctors and they continue to grow, and we don't just focus on the shit that's going on outside the hospital or anything like that, which is something that I've always appreciated about the show, that there still is a focus particularly on the patients as well.
Yeah, definitely. And if you didn't know they were all residents, even when the Todd comes up and says, "Now that I'm a resident," and he points at all the nurses, I do you. No, that Laverne threatens him, and he says, "I'll switch you to a yes because you're feisty."
Todd's the best.
Yeah, the Todd is another character that this season I I liked a lot more because it the jokes were more subtle and more pronounced. But the Todd also, he gets a pass because he's not a main character, and it just comes up every now and again. So I give him a pass. I don't know what that says about me as a person, that I'm letting Todd off the hook when I don't let JD and Elliot off the hook, but tough shit. It's just how I feel
I'm
about
good with it.
about the show. But the second episode of this season actually deals with them kind of going solo one night. Dr. Cox isn't even there, and it's their first night solo as residents, and it's just one of those weird nights where all the shit is going wrong, and that's always fun because you hear or my mom was a nurse and she would always talk about from time to time that there would always be one night where shit always goes sideways because she always said it was because of the full moon, and I was like, that makes no sense at all, but fair enough. But if that's the way that you could explain that away, then fine. Who am I to bust balls about that? But yeah, that's definitely something that I did enjoy, that second episode where they're kind of flying a little bit more solo, as opposed to just having Dr. Cox watch their backs, and just trying to figure shit out.
The other big thing about that episode is Carla. Carla, who wasn't supposed to work that night, switches her shift, so she's there to help them. And they always did a good job in this show every season of not only the doctor part of it, but showing the nurses being a support that doesn't get looked at the same way as doctors, but are just as important. So, and someone who works with Alzheimer's seniors like I do, the full moon definitely fucks with people because we
Mm.
have some days at work after full moons that it's like, oh, yep, full moon.
Okay,
Yeah,
so it's
in education, there's more than half the teachers will tell you they know when it's a full moon because the kids kind of lose their shit too. So
kids kids are feisty, and okay. All right, gotcha. Okay, so I'm the one that's full of shit. It's a legit thing. Okay, that's fair. Okay.
with what Brian was saying, with they always, even though she annoys me sometimes, they do a good job with Carla and the nursing profession of like making them or making her the unsung hero. But
Mhm.
even more than that, the necessary linchpin of keeping the hospital going. And they get into it later but it's pretty good. There are problems with it at some points, but JD and Carla's relationship does ebb and flow, but it stays pretty consistent with respect. How, I mean, she aggressively took him under her wing, but they remain, I don't want to just say cordial, necessary parts of each other's lives. JD more relies on her for work, and she, I guess, as just a character, relies on him to soften her edges because I've been pretty frank about I think she's pretty coarse as a character. So JD needing her for the story, and then the writers using JD to soften her, edges. I think it works.
Yeah, I would agree with that because Carla was the only character throughout season one that I was like, I'm not sure about Carla as a character. And as the season went on, I realized that she's not only a necessary part of the show because she's a nurse, she's the different perspective for the doctors, but also she keeps them kind of in check from getting too high off their own shit. And I think that's something that this episode kind of continues to talk about. And there's there's something that happens. I can't remember if it's this season or the next season where, you know, or maybe that happened in the first season. I don't know, but there's an episode where I can't remember who. I think it might have been Turk who's like, here's some here's some classes on how to become a nurse practitioner because you can be more than just a nurse. And I, as a family member of multiple nurses in my Filipino family, saying just a nurse is like probably the biggest slap in the face that you could give somebody who's a nurse who work just as hard, if not harder, than the doctors and get paid a fraction of the price
Right.
and get less appreciation and less accolades and all that shit too. So yeah, I think I really like some aspects of what they did with Carla this season, and then there's one aspect that I was not a huge fan of, and we'll get to that a little bit later.
Yeah, I think reiterating what I was saying, her knowledge, and I know the exact the scene. It's on a bus, and it's raining, and she's on and off, and JD's trying to, talk her down, but she's almost like a mother hen or a fun governor. But what allows her to be that is her they need her, especially JD, starting off with just doing whatever intubations or whatever he has trouble with at the start, stuff like that. She's needed, so they have, this might come off wrong. JD especially has to be nice to her because he needs her. But I think it's more than that. He actually likes her and respects
Yeah.
her.
Well,
But she's allowed to be the fun governor and kind of bitchy and kind of irritating because she's necessary.
well, because there is an episode later on this season where where JD is trying to encourage Carla to like open up to her a little bit more, and she is just like not having it. She's like, nope, because I've been through this song and dance before. Like doctors, they'll come and go, but what makes you think you're going to be any different? So I think that's a conversation that I think is nice to have because as for Carla, who's a nurse who's been at this hospital a long time and has seen a lot of doctors come and go, whether they've failed as a doctor or if they leave for private practice or whatever the reason. Uh, I think it's integral that her relationship with all the main characters, particularly JD and Turk, kind of start to evolve a little bit more this season. It doesn't really evolve with Elliot until next season, I think,
Right.
a lot, but I appreciated the fact that their relationship goes kind of beyond JD needing Carla for that knowledge to them actually becoming more friends this season as well. Okay, so we got our first kind of pseudo major guest star beyond the lead singer from Men at Work, I suppose, and we got JD's brother Dan, who is played by Tom Cavanaugh from, for me, I knew him from Ed also on NBC. There you go. There's that corporate synergy, fucking cowards. But at the same time, Dan is like a polar opposite of what JD is. He's not driven. He doesn't have his shit together. But it's funny because they've got great chemistry, and Tom Cavanaugh's like a bit of an underrated actor in general. So, Brian, give me some thoughts on Dan, JD's brother.
What a well done job. Complete opposite, like you said. He living at home in the parents' house. He's a bartender. I think he lives above in the garage. So just they did such a good job with him through the years, but definitely, it's early on here because they just introduce him and, he's hitting on Elliot. And that's a strange thing because, he's trying to explain to him, JD's like, hey, I was there before, it's going to be a little weird. And he didn't care. So just, they did a really good job with Tom Cavanaugh. And you said, underrated actor. One thing that I know him best for being the comic book guy, and he was on Flash and played, I believe, like 30 different versions of his character in it was great in every one of them. So I've obviously seen him in this first, but watching him do that stuff on Flash, he's a very good actor. And, but yeah, it just, I don't want to say the character hit home for me because, I've got some big brothers, but yeah, I did just well written, well done, and did his role very well in this situation.
Did we meet JD's dad in season 1?
We did.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Tom Ritter, John Ritter.
yeah, I was just gonna say, as soon as you brought him up, he's the not carbon copy. He's almost the next step of the dad.
Yeah.
Kind of a little more of a screw up. Super nice guy. People tend to like him. But just doesn't have his shit together. Where, we know that the dad's a salesman and has to, is barely getting by. He's not really a go-getter. He's not the top salesman. He's salesman enough to put food on the table. But and that's, the brother's just kind of coasting through life and seems fairly happy about it at most times. Where JD's, stressed a lot and never really pissed off a lot, but not happy with the way things are going. His brother seems to not have much, but likes where he's at and what he's doing, and isn't really concerned with what Cox thinks about him. He's not like scared of Cox like most people are when they meet him. He's not intimidated by much, and I dig that about him.
Yeah, and he's somebody that this is his first appearance on the show, and then he pops up every now and again in all the rest of the seasons. He usually gets one episode, sometimes two, depending on what's going on. Because I think the next time that we see him, I think is when I guess it's not that much of a spoiler to say that JD's dad dies because John Ritter died, so kind of can't replace him or anything like that. So, and that's where he shows up multiple episodes, and kind of just you get to see a little bit of his progression as he shows up in subsequent seasons, and that's something that I thought was really cool. That he doesn't just stick to being like a total slacker and kind of just this, you know, be this polar opposite of what JD is supposed to be as a doctor. And there's some moments where he gets like he calls JD out on his shit. And I think that's something that a big brother is supposed to do from time to time, is just call you out on your shit when you're getting too hot for yourself. So I
He's
thought that,
also, I'm sorry,
okay.
I didn't mean to jump in. It just came
Oh,
to me though.
go ahead. It's all good.
The one thing he did though too is, it's he confronts Dr. Cox
Mhm.
quietly behind the scenes. He meets up with him afterwards. They're outside, and he's, you know, tells him the story about he kept taking him to the wrong school when he was a kid, and he was like, hey, my brother's never going to look up to me, but he looks up to you, and you need to take that seriously. And that's when, Dr. Cox, who's calling him an idiot and just has no respect for him through the whole thing, then finish it and it's good to see you, Dan, and shakes his hand. And I mean, it's just, that's when you get the idea that Dan's not the screw up you think he is, and this is a character you want to see come back.
Well, and they allow him, to be self-aware. He
Mhm.
knows where he is, what he is, and what his limits are. Maybe not like he's being held down or he's being limited, but just where his ambitions are. He's just he knows who he is and he's comfortable with it, and he knows other people have other ambitions, and Cox can do big things for his brother that he can't. So as far as emotionally, or just being someone you can look up to, like Brian said.
Speaking of Dr. Cox is somebody who, first part of the season, he's really wrestling with his feelings for Jordan, not really sure what to do with that. But what better way to kind of get to where you're supposed to be and trying to figure that out than getting the chance to nail Heather Locklear, right? so this is the next kind of major guest star where Heather Locklear, who is a pharmaceutical representative, which I think just the perfect person to get, like, for the timing. It's so funny, at trivia not too long ago, we had a photo strip round where people had to identify the like a character from a TV show, and it was Heather Locklear's character from Melrose Place, and all the people who lived through the '90s knew exactly who that was. But anybody that didn't grow up in the '90s, or nope, it's like, I have no idea who this person is. I'm like, fuck, man, that sucks, because Heather Locklear was, she was beautiful. She was beautiful, and the perfect person to put in there for a pharmaceutical rep, especially a stereotypical pharmaceutical rep of what you'd expect. Somebody who knows how to push drugs, someone that's super attractive, and somebody that knows how to call doctors out on their shit. So Aaron, any thoughts on Julie, who is played by Heather Locklear, pharmaceutical rep?
You kind of already said it. Stereotypical. I think it comes up even. I had to look up, what year this was. So this is 2003 that season 2 came out in. And it's right. I think we've seen it came up maybe in How I Met Your Mother. I think Barney talks about pharmaceutical
The Pharma
reps,
Girls, yeah.
pharma girls. Later on in Big Bang Theory,
Mhm.
Penny has a stint at being a pharma girl. So it was a widely used trope back then in TV, and I'm assuming it was based in reality. But no, she fit it perfect. She had the right swagger. She had the right look. What I was lost my train of thought.
Heather Locklear would kind of
Oh,
does
what I
does
wanted to
that
say
too.
was, did she do anything after? Was this like her last? You were talking about, she was beautiful. She had done Spin City, or maybe this even overlapped with Spin City. And it just, I haven't seen her since this, and this was 20 years ago. Was she in anything after for the internet diggers?
It's mainly
Internet
just like a handful
diggers.
of stuff, and she's stuck pretty much to TV.
Which was her
She
bread and butter, because she was all the way back to like Fall Guy, right? Wasn't Heather Locklear and like,
No, that was Heather Thomas, I
oh,
believe her name was.
oops.
Because there were two Heathers that kind of were big.
Okay.
But yeah,
But I mean,
like
she was
like
like all the way back to late 70s, early 80s, TV, different series, right? I want to say like a Magnum PI type show, or, MacGruber, but it would have been called, what was the real name of the show?
MacGyver.
MacGyver. Just those kind of shows. Like, I see her, either guest starring or being in shows that ran for 2, 3 seasons, kind of stuff.
TJ Hooker was the
There you go. That's the one.
it's not TJ Hooker. Then she was on Dynasty for a little bit.
Yeah, so those are late 70s, early 80s, right? Mid 80s at the latest.
Mid 80s, I would say.
Yeah, it just seems like I haven't, you were just saying how she's, pretty and did a great job. And I was like, huh, what happened to her?
Yeah, she wasn't in a lot of stuff after Scrubs, just handful of TV shows that, like, one or two episode stints. Like, she was on a show called LAX for 13 seasons. Everything else that she can't forget that there's a Melrose Place reboot that lasted a couple seasons, and she was in that for a little while. Other than that, that's really about it. She's in a lot of TV movies now. Like, her most recent credit was Mormon Mom's Gone Wrong, the Ruby Frank story.
Yeah, no.
But
but I
that's a
guess,
bummer.
and she didn't really set it up because kind of Jordan maybe sets this up, but they do a really good job of having beautiful, strong women that don't take a lot of shit, and have just as good a time with the guys as the guys have with them. There's a lot of ass slapping of themselves, and there's not too many ditzy, help me female characters in the show that I can think of, guests or even short term girl interests.
I think that's a Bill Lawrence staple, though. Like a lot of his characters that are female, they don't take shit from people, and even to this, even most recently with Shrinking and Ted Lasso, same thing. A lot of female characters don't take shit from people, which yeah, good for you, Bill Lawrence, for writing great female characters.
And I don't want to say stereotypical, but I mean, when Kelso is like, "Hey, do you know what Julie's selling?" And he's got like the Plomax hat and pens and coffee mug. And Cox's like, "I'll guess Plomax or Flomax, whatever it was." But it was just so well done. And she's like, "Do you want a pen?" And she's got to touch her boob to get it. And then Cox is like making JD look away and no. But then they have the dinner and Turk eats 5 steaks at the dinner and has to go to the hospital.
Mhm.
So, I mean, we've all done that, right?
So I used to sell IT equipment for a long time, and a lot of IT vendors, they do similar things where they take you out to dinner, they try to get you to sell their stuff to people. Certain companies, they do kind of have a particular style of people that they hire in order to try to get you to sell their stuff. So definitely not equating it to the same thing, but it's kind of similar in a lot of ways. So
Did you
that's
whore yourself out, Mike? Is that what you're trying to say?
anyways. No, I never whore myself out or anything like that. I just have a podcast network where I whore myself out, except with just content. I'm very close to just starting my OnlyFans. So just you wait with that.
Episode of the Scrubs Breakdown is brought to you by Flomax.
Oh, good call out with that. Okay, so it the we haven't really mentioned Elliot this season yet, and so far the big thing that's happening with Elliot around the same time is Elliot is dealing with a malpractice lawsuit, and this is around the time that her dad is trying to get her to go into OBGYN, and I love how they portray the OBGYN group like they're kind of like a sorority in a lot of ways, and women predominantly go into that particular field in medicine, and Elliot kind of stands up for herself, and because of that she gets cut off, which that's it. I think that was kind of a necessary step for Elliot as a character to eventually have to get to that point, but for it to be now, I think that was an interesting move. Aaron, what did you think about Elliot's malpractice lawsuit or being cut off by her dad?
I like the whole going into OBGYN, and it shows and I'm right. Kelso's the sexist one about it, right? Telling her that, you're going to be, on the 3rd floor with he's even got a cute name for him. Just her and her dad, is it her dad or her mom? Her mom's always on her about her weight, and, you know, it's called fen mom, and it's killing people, you know, but so one of them, is the antagonist for the, pushing her towards the OBGYN, but then
I'm pretty
Kelso's the real dick about it.
I'm pretty sure it's her dad. I think her dad
That's what
is
I
the main
thought, but
one
I wasn't
that's because he's
100% sure.
because he's also in medicine as well. So,
Right.
you know,
The mom doesn't even care that she's a doctor. She just
Right.
wants her to be cute and skinny.
Right.
like every mom wants their kids to do. Gotta love the early 2000s, right? When
Yeah.
that was a big priority.
But no, and about the lawsuit, I don't remember too much about the lawsuit. I do like how after she's cut off and she's going through what she can't have anymore, she can't afford, and eventually ends up living in the U-Haul, or Ryder. I don't know which kind of rental truck it was, But yeah, I like that whole, not really a fall from grace, but a fall from a pedestal. But like you say, for her character, she needed it to grow up, I think, a little bit.
So she is actually how that comes about, she runs into a situation with a patient where she or he doesn't appreciate the care that he's given her or that she's given him. And it's Alan Ruck, who is Cameron from Ferris Bueller's Day Off and Connor from Succession. And this was an episode that I watched and I was like, oh shit, that's right. That's him. And same old neurotic person that he normally is. And this is something that occasionally comes up throughout the course of the whole series about the kind of frivolousness that comes with medical malpractice lawsuits from time to time. But I don't know. I think kind of putting Elliot in this position, I think, is kind of the interesting way to go because, you know, Turk's got like Turk and Carla and JD all have a lot of their shit going on, and then to kind of they really throw a lot of shit at Elliot in a very short amount of time this season. And I think giving the medical malpractice storyline to her sucked a lot. Not because it was a bad story. It's just a lot of stuff to just pile on for one person who already has a lot of shit going on in their lives. So I, like I'm always kind of interested in the whole concept of the medical malpractice stuff, mainly because it's it's such a big part of medicine because people are bringing up bogus medical malpractice things, and that's a recurring theme throughout the show. Like Dr. Cox points that out, is that you know people are going to call out doctors because all they want is just money from them, and that
Well,
sucks
because they're
that
bastard covered bastards with bastard fillings.
that's right. Oh,
Now,
Dr. Cox.
one of the great things from that storyline though is Ted Buckland when she goes to visit him, and he's like, "Well, you didn't admit it was your fault," and they cut to her admitting it to him, and he's, "Come on, not even a good lawyer can get you out of this." I mean,
Yeah.
and again, it was Alan Ruck was on Spin City also for the entirety of Spin City, so Bill Lawrence pulling in guys
Yeah.
from the past.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, so after all this, one of my favorite episodes of this season, it's the one called My Monster, where they talk about how the hospital takes over their lives a lot, and it's so funny because this has like a lot of gross imagery in it, and it kind of fucks with JD a lot when he has a date with Lisa the gift shop girl, which played by Sarah Lancaster. For me, she was Chuck's sister for the entire run of the show, and I really like her as a character. JD, how could you fuck this up, though? Like how? Like I understand how, but dude, come on. Brian, any thoughts on Lisa the gift shop girl?
Love Lisa the gift shop girl. I was so angry with him. I mean, she's going in for the kiss, and he
Just pulling back and it's
come
just
on. It was terrible. Was this the one too where? And I'm not even gonna try and say his name. The guy who was married to Sophia Vergara just was in Magic Mike. Joel
Montana.
Man,
No, nope,
not
that's not it.
Montana.
That's not it. I as soon as I said it, I was like,
Yeah.
nope, that's fucking wrong.
It's like
I-
Maine, Maine.
But he guest stars in this one too because they were like they were the ones who picked on JD when he was younger, and they went and got gay with each other. I mean, it was like,
Oh.
God, I don't remember that at all. I swear to God.
it's
let's
he's trying
go.
to tell Turk the story about how he hooked up with a gift shop girl, and the guys that messed with him in high school, they were like, he's like, no, I'm gonna go back and have sex with this girl, and he was like, cool, we're gonna go have sex with each other.
Let's go bang. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's how they refer to it.
And then Turk's like, oh, you're lying. He's like, how'd you know? Like, how did they know gift shop girl's name? I mean, it was just something silly, but
yeah,
anyway, it was just, they used her just enough. Gift shop girl. She came back, I think, for a callback when they were talking about JD not seeing a girl if she had a wedding or an engagement ring
Right,
on.
yeah, she disappeared, and they don't, whatever happened to her? She got, she still works there. She just got married.
Right here.
Mhm.
So, but good character. Like I said, a good character. I thought they used well.
Aaron, any other thoughts on gift shop girl?
No, I mean, she was convenient.
Yes, I think that's the
You know,
perfect way to put her. She was convenient. She was pretty. She was, easy. This is gonna make me sound like super creepy, but just go with it. Easy target, perhaps.
yeah, both for JD and for the show. You know, she was already there. She was already a character. I believe she had been in the background and acknowledged before. You know, it wasn't like she was brought in just, for this storyline.
Yeah. So at the end of this episode, this is where, JD kind of fucks everything up with Lisa the gift shop girl, but he ends up becoming sex buddies with Elliot at the end of this episode. And
You gotta go duh when you say sex buddies.
that is true. I will anytime that I say that, I will, add in that, the trumpet noise. So this is another example of a long line of just all the random hookups between JD and Elliot. And what did we think of this one in particular? Because after season one, where they dated for a little while, they figured out that they weren't a good couple at that time. But what did we think of them becoming sex buddies in this episode? Aaron, why don't you go first?
I think it's fine. It gets us through a few episodes because eventually we end up with Silver Spoon,
Ricky Schroeder.
which
Alonso Rivera?
all right. So was he Joe Flower? Wasn't he
Paul Flowers, yeah.
Paul Flowers,
Okay.
nurse.
Right. But I mean, it got, and I don't know how long the sex buddy thing lasted before, because Paul Flowers, he was around a few episodes, wasn't he? It was more than a
Definitely.
one and done.
He was like, I think, a solid third of this season. Oh, probably
Okay,
not that
so-
much, but he was in a good chunk of the season.
Right. 3, 4, 5,
I'm gonna say 5 episodes.
And obviously as writers, they might not have had it fleshed out, but they knew that was coming. So it was a good way to get us from gift shop girl to there without having the will they won't they the whole time, which I appreciate a show getting rid of that when they can. I mean, just realizing that everybody's adults and that they live stressful lives, and they're convenient for each other with no strings attached. So it worked out. I didn't hate it. I don't want to say it was lazy, but it was kind of an easy way to get from A to B.
Yes, I completely 100% agree with you on that. Brian?
Well, the first season, there was the tension between JD and Elliot at the beginning of it, and then they have basically a one episode where they're together and break up. And now in this one, they go for the retap, and it's they don't draw that out. It's basically an episode and a half because JD's starting to catch feelings and he's getting ready to try and move this to more relationship stuff. And she finally realizes that she can't keep doing this and kind of cuts it off. So that's where we get the sad trumpet noise. But yeah, I mean, it's two episodes in a 22 episode season. So it's not, and it didn't turn, the rest of the season didn't turn into a will they, won't they kind of thing where they kept bringing it back, Ross Rachel style. They just moved on and they stayed friends and went from there.
So after kind of all this with JD and Elliot, the story kind of shifts a little bit, and there's two big events that kind of coincide together, and they happen kind of at similar times. So we find out that Jordan's pregnant around this time. Real talk, was there ever any doubt in either of your minds that it was Dr. Cox's kid?
None whatsoever.
Yeah, I
Aaron?
don't think so.
Yeah, no, none. And granted, yes, understand that Jordan gets around. There was maybe that possibility that it was JD's, but I don't think that they would do that.
I don't think that ever crossed my mind.
I think that'd be pretty fucked if that was the case. And I think that would just bring irreversible damage to JD and Dr. Cox's relationship. So, but there was not any doubt in my mind. And like this whole mystery thing, a little like it's fine if they want to, try to provide a little bit of mystery to it, but there was no doubt in my mind that it was Dr. Cox's kid. And the fact that Perry couldn't figure it out, like, dude, what the fuck?
I think that was willful.
Well, yeah,
more than
yes,
anything.
yes, absolutely. I do agree with that 100%. So that's going to be the big storyline for the second half of the season. But the other big storyline is that Turk proposes to Carla, and it does not go well. And this is kind of the thing that I was talking about. I think Carla was really shitty to him about this. So, Brian, go ahead. Give me your thoughts on this whole saga of Turk proposes to Carla.
It was one of those. It goes back to, I think, the first season where it took them so long to get together, and she had to be convinced to go out with him, and he had to show her that he was a good person and somebody, not just a scalpel jockey. But I also think they drew it out a little bit too long, and the I'm going to keep proposing over and over again until you say yes, and that part of it just it was beating a dead horse at one point. But as like I said, it was a point where they made Carla the bad guy for a minute, and it was okay though. It was kind of needed, I guess. They had to have somebody to go to that way, and her reasons were her own for what she was doing, and she explained it, and it finally happened.
Yeah, yeah. Good call out with that. Aaron, thoughts on Turk and Carla's proposal saga?
One of the things that irritate me with her was that whole storyline. And like I don't know, maybe it was an epiphany, but he had basically given up. Hadn't he just told JD that he was done proposing? I'm not doing it anymore. And that's when she decides that, oh, okay, now that I've broken him, it's like, I don't know. It's just one of those things that irritate me about, it doesn't make her a bad person. It doesn't, she's not evil or anything. It's just like, God,
Well,
you're
he
just
was literally
frustrating.
about to talk to the waitress that JD thought liked
The
him.
the
I can't
the
remember what her name was, but
the waitress who preferred chocolate
yeah.
milkshakes over
Hey, yeah,
vanilla.
yeah, that's what yeah.
And they're sitting in that bus stop, and she's getting ready to make a move on him, and phone rings and ask me again.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
like you said, he
I
broke her
wouldn't have
down.
been mad if you've been like, nope. But yeah, I don't know. It's just, and I guess that word that I just threw, I don't dislike her. I don't think she's evil. She's just a frustrating character. She frustrates me a
Mhm.
lot of times when she's on the screen with just her. And it's not really neediness. I mean, she's got her own mind of how things should work, and there's nothing wrong with that. It just seems to go against the fun freestyle of the rest of the group.
Yes, yeah, that's true. So the happy ending to this story, because Carla eventually does say yes. I thought the scene where he does propose and she says yes. I thought that scene was very cute, especially with JD with the sparklers kind of just running around a lot. I thought that was fun. But yeah, I largely agree with what both of you said that this was just it was a frustrating storyline and it's something that didn't need to get drawn out. However, we did get a DL Hughley cameo for this, where he played JD's or not the fuck
Yeah.
Turk's brother. Don't you fucking say it. So
I don't
the
see color.
but yeah, DL Hughley's role in this was very funny as Turk's brother, who never shows up again conveniently in the entire series. Unless was he wasn't at Turk's wedding, right?
Nope.
Nope, Carla's brother was there, but Turk's brother couldn't be bothered to to show up for that. But I thought that was a nice touch and just a great way to show that like Turk cares about his family a lot and he like brought him in to like kind of help seal the deal, but also just shows what kind of a person Turk is as a character. And this I think this is like the main Turk storyline through this season as he's kind of wrestling with how like is he going to propose? How is he going to propose? And then kind of what to do after he runs into this issue, which is all good, I guess, because he does get more to do in later seasons. But I feel like he doesn't have as many storylines this season compared to the others. Am I wrong in that? Maybe.
No, I think you're right. He's more of a I'm there to back up JD for this
Mhm.
season.
Yeah, yeah. All right. Let's see. So, a couple other things for this season. So we've got Dr. Cox versus PD, the doctor who caused him and Jordan to split up, with the cameo from Jay Moore, which boy, Jay Moore knows how to play an asshole, right?
Yeah.
And kind of just shows Dr. Cox's affinity for private practice doctors as well. That's something that carries him throughout the whole season, so, or the series rather. Any other thoughts on Jay Moore, Pete as a character? Not a whole lot happened there, but it's still some good backstory and good context to kind of help understand Dr. Cox a little bit more.
Aaron?
Go ahead, Brian.
Oh, I liked Jay Moore. Well, I mean, he had that other sitcom, and I can't think of the name of it, but I'd like Jay Moore.
It was
I
called
think he's
Jay or
funny.
something, wasn't it? I thought it was his name, but I liked it too.
And, but, it's like, first thing he says is, you call me whatever, just don't call me Petey. And Dr. Cox walk in, Petey, Petey, Petey,
PD.
But I mean, it was an important cameo because you learn, he's the one who broke up Dr. Cox and Jordan. I was struggling. This shows how big of a dickhead you are. And then you leave and go to private practice, which is the not profession, but Dr. Cox hating private practice too. So not only did the guy ruin his marriage, he ends up
Up and
going
leaving
into
too.
leaving him and going to the practice that he despises, the part of it, a part of medicine he despises. But they also has him show JD, okay, this is how you can interact with Dr. Cox and kind of stand up to him when, he tells him how during his rant, he's pointing out,
just act like you're not paying attention.
yeah.
And
And
yeah.
here's the jaw clench and then just say, sorry, did you say something? And then he gets a little acknowledgement and walks away from him. So I thought it was a good add to the show. He mattered. And I think it was a good guest appearance.
Yeah. Go ahead, Aaron.
Yeah, just solid guest appearance. I like Jay Moore, and I looked it up. Gary Unmarried. That was the show I was talking about.
Yeah.
That was after this. The timeline gets skewed over the last 40 years of what came out when I was watching what. But yeah, I liked him, and I do. It set up the whole Cox's place where he is in his mindset about this is where you help people in the hospital. This is where you save lives. Private practice is nice, but a real doctor practices in a hospital.
Right. And so going back actually, so Dr. Cox actually gets his own episode where he's the narrator of the episode as well. Did they do that in season 1? I don't remember if they did that with somebody else. Okay.
This was the first his story.
Okay. So, and I think Dr. Cox was a good person to start off with this, considering everything that's happened to him this season. And I think the scenes with him in therapy are really funny, and they're showing that he's trying, but his therapist is like, "Fuck you, guy! Like you are the bane of my existence," and that was great as well. But Aaron, any thoughts or anything from you regarding the Dr. Cox centric story where he's the narrator?
I just like that it set up another trope that carried on throughout. I liked it as a difference. It was like, how can we make this episode different? And it's quite a curveball. I know I'm not sure how they passed the torch in this one. I know in later episodes, you'd bump into somebody and then Elliot's voice would take over, the rest of the way down the hall when it was her story. But, I like it for the innovativeness. I didn't think it was, super enlightening or anything, and just a good, solid episode, but I think the main novelty of it was the switching up the narrator. It's like, this could be cool, and it ended up being really cool.
Yeah.
As they did it more.
Yes. I agree with that. Brian?
The therapist, Eric Bogajian, I believe, is kind of how it's pronounced, somewhat. great character, just calls Perry out on all his shit, and they use him to a couple times. It's not a one and done. He comes back, I think, one time later, but it was like Aaron said, first time they had somebody else, and they do his story. I know they did it with Elliot, and I think they do it with the janitor at one point too.
They
So
they do it with like the main, like all the main cast members, and then a lot of the supporting ones as well. Because I think I'm pretty sure they did one with Dr. Kelso as well.
they
So
did, yes. I think they did one where they had three different people doing it. It was like the Todd
Passes
Kelso,
through.
yeah. But
and Jordan, I think, is part of that group as well.
yes, yeah. So, but this one, and this was the episode where they introduced Nurse Paul Flowers. It was
Yeah.
his first appearance, also.
I mean, any thoughts on Paul Flowers, nurse extraordinaire, Ricky Schroeder, who he was an interesting guy for a little while, right?
At the time, I was pretty excited to see Ricky Schroeder because he had just come off Law and Order,
What was the
NYPD Blue.
oh,
NYPD
that's right,
Blue,
NYPD
whichever
Blue.
one.
That's right.
Whoa, you!
I know. I wasn't trying to hurt you, Brian.
Oh, was there an Easter egg in there too?
Yeah. Cram one up your ass.
Get me all fired up.
No, it's just because with that show, it was like, what are they going to do? How are they going to do this? And I'm like, they're bringing in Ricky Schroeder. This can't, and he nailed it. He did a great job in that. So then he showed up in this, and I liked him somewhat. He played more of a straight guy. He wasn't like a goofy comedian. He took his job real serious and was proud to be a nurse. So yeah, I thought he did a good job. I like the storyline with him. Yeah, I later on, but for this, it was really good. I thought his storyline in Scrubs.
Yeah. I haven't mentioned the janitor much. So later on in the like he doesn't get a lot to do in the first part of the season, but later on they start to kind of lay down the foundation that the janitor has a crush on Elliot. So, and I think this is the last season where the janitor takes like more of a back seat, and then the janitor in later seasons starts to become like way more involved in stuff. And I am I'm all here for more opportunities for the janitor to do stuff. So I think this season is also where he gets promoted to series regular as well. So that's always a plus. But this season he doesn't get a whole lot to do. It's just the usual, just hijinks every now and again, and he doesn't become like an integral member of the group until next season, I would say.
Yeah, he did. He did get added to the series credits in the beginning in this season, and like one of the bits with the spraying JD in the crotch, and you're the whiz kid. I mean, he was that for the season, and yeah, he liked blonde doctor. He didn't even call them names. So, but yeah, I mean, Neil Flynn is just so good as an actor, and he does. I mean, we talked about him in the first season. You can talk about him every season, and the more they gave him, the more he did with it.
Yeah,
So.
for sure. Okay, so last couple bits of this season, we would be remiss not to talk about perhaps the worst nickname that you could give a patient's
best.
wife on the face of the planet, Tasty Coma Wife,
I
played
know
by
exactly who you're talking about. It seems very descriptive.
That's absolutely true. But Amy Smart, who around this time, Amy Smart was probably at the height of her powers, right? Because
Yeah.
she was in like Varsity Blues and Road Trip, which I think was either like right before or right after this. And that's really about it for her. But Amy Smart was this series had a way of capitalizing on, they capitalized on her and they capitalized on Tara Reid at the right moments. But that's for next season or the season after that. No, it's definitely next season.
Yeah.
But Aaron, I'll go ahead and start with you since you know exactly who I'm talking about. But the whole Tasty Coma Wife storyline with JD and like her just having a husband who's in a coma in the hospital.
Right. I think all right. So obviously this isn't the gut punch of the season. If we talk about Scrubs gut punches, they're pretty dramatic. But it does have some emotional ties and some real life, thoughtful moments, even though they cometize them.
Yes,
About
it's
this
true.
lady. She's got a husband. She's very attractive. He's in a coma, has been in a coma for a while. No prognosis of him coming out of the coma. She has needs, but she's also trying to be a good person, for everybody watching her. So I thought, that was kind of a awkward, probably has happened to somebody in real life,
Oh yeah,
you
for
know,
sure.
situation that's, tough to deal with. And they, made it as real as they could for a 30-minute sitcom and slightly emotional and, just, well, not even really emotional, but tried to draw in some understanding. And, you know, did I mention she's super hot?
Yes, very, very much so
To the
in
point of
this. Yes, yes.
I thought it was a fine story. I liked it. What was it? 3 episodes, maybe 2.
Oh, I think she's
It wasn't that long, was it? Was she around?
she's for sure in 3 episodes.
Okay.
So there's the introduction of her, and then the funeral, and then their their relationship kind of like abruptly ends. Like
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
because she ends up being kind of twisted and like
the drama queen,
the
like
taboo of it. Yeah, the
yeah.
drama of
Right.
it. So, and that runs its course, but also makes
When,
it super hot.
when JD tries to pick the fight with the midget. 'Cause
Oh my God.
no, it was him. He's the one who said it.
So
Brian, I
it
believe the
has to
term
be.
is little
Oh,
people.
dwarf, midget, little person. I'm whatever it is.
Whatever it is, not him or her, it. That is how you're gonna pronoun the little
Yeah,
person, Brian.
what I meant by it was it being the word to use, not the
Mm,
people.
okay, cool. That's fine. Yeah, this was an interesting storyline because Aaron, I think you put it the best way that this did have some emotional gut punch moments. Like I remember the scene where she says to JD, like, I really want you to kiss me. And he is just seeing like the comatose husband, like he's just like shivering in the background. It's like, oh, that's gotta be a real shitty position to be in for both of them because they're both attracted to each other and he wants to, but he knows that like he can't do that. Granted, he also doesn't wait very long until he's actually gone, and they end up just doing it at the funeral, which I thought that scene was hysterical,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
hysterical. So,
I dropped something on my foot.
so, this was an interesting storyline. I think the only thing that kind of bothered me about it is that it just abruptly ends. They don't have a typical breakup like a lot of people do. It just kind of fizzles out and there's no resolution. Like even like I don't think they even like at the end of like the episode, the My Drama Queen episode, I don't think they even like break up. They just like what do we do assume that they're just still together? Like no, like because JD ended up like dating somebody else pretty soon after that, but they don't even mention her like perhaps ever again. And that's too bad because if you have someone with just the horrendously accurate nickname of Tasty Coma Wife, you'd think that they would give her a better send off, but they don't. And
Yeah.
whatever, it is what it is.
They did have this overlap too with the Elliot Paul Flowers relationship
Mhm.
and the Tasty Coma wife and JD. So at first I thought they were going to try, and I think they even had them go on a double date at one point. So it was kind of showing them that they're both moving on, and then both of them end pretty quick. So
Yeah. So during this time as well, Jordan has their kid, Jack, as they eventually name the kid, and Dr. Cox is adjusting to kind of being a caregiver for this kid and then eventually becoming a father. So that was interesting. Around this time as well, Carla's mom dies, which
You were real broke up about, is what you're saying. That was the gut punch of the season. No.
ooh, I don't will
but that
you know
was
You know what? I will actually, I'm going to add that as one of the things. If you could pick like a gut punch moment of the season, what would you pick? So, yeah, like that was like that's something that does come up a bunch throughout the course of the season as well. But I think this is a rare moment where I'll kind of defend Carla a little bit. It's like, hey, her mom just died. Like, way to kick a person when they're down and just make her feel guilty about not talking to her mom a lot. Which, no, wait, I don't think that happens this season. I
What
think
was
that,
happening
No,
there?
that was later.
okay.
What was happening when she finds out her mom dies? Did she cancel something? Were they about to?
That's when he proposed to her, like for the first time.
Oh,
Because that's
okay.
why she went away. She didn't answer the proposal and she went away for a week.
Yeah.
I don't know. Wait, I think that part, her mom wasn't doing that well, and then I think later on, like because according to IMDb, Carla's mom doesn't die until like the penultimate episode of the season. Like she gets sick, but she doesn't die. All of this to say, like this storyline like didn't do a whole lot for me because I don't think Carla's mom even like appears in the show. It's just, well, maybe, I don't know, I don't remember, but all
No,
of
we
this
meet
is,
mom.
yeah, but not Carla's mom.
We meet Carla's mom once when she comes in and it has a broom and wants to hit Turk because they had sex. That was
That's
in the
right.
first season.
That's right. All right. Well, let's get to the final episode of the season. So the final episode of the season has a cameo from a baby Ryan Reynolds in this, where the main crux of the storyline for the season two finale is that JD, Elliot, and Turk, they're starting to feel like their job is getting a little monotonous and it's starting to get a little boring. And while this is happening, Dr. Cox is also, he eventually does figure out that he's the father of Jack, and him kind of like adjusting to what this is going to be like for him moving forward. So Brian, pick either one of those storylines. Which one do you do you want to talk about first?
Well, Ryan Reynolds, we got Spence here, guest starring. Him and Amy Smart did a movie where
Just Friends.
just friends. And I wonder if this was around the same time because they used both of them. You know, it's just the JD and Turk are all frustrated and, Spence is there and convinces them to go out and, have a few drinks and they come in, they get called and on call and, they get put to task by Dr. Cox. We deal with that part of it. Then you got Dr. Cox, who isn't sure if he could be a dad, although he's been a dad all this time to Jack. So that one didn't sit well with me. It was one of those, hey, you already been taking care of the kid. Now that it's yours, it's different. No, it should actually be more.
Hmm.
You should be. So, but this obviously leads to the Kelso Cox moment at the end, the big season two finale moment. That was kind of a bomb drop, just like the Jordan bomb drop. But Dr. Cox knocking out Kelso.
Yeah.
So
Yep. That is how the season ends, and then and that is how season and that's how season three starts. But yeah,
Doesn't
that's
Ted do that when he knocks him out?
that's what, yeah.
That's what I thought. I wasn't like we're done. I was like when
yeah.
Yeah,
Ted
Ted's
beats him up.
standing there with his, and then Laverne's on the phone explaining it. And yeah.
Aaron, any thoughts on the final episode of the season? Any one of those storylines?
Was it down to the final episode? Was it in this episode that Cox found out, or had he?
I I think he finds out this episode.
And one of the group, JD, somebody knew way before, right?
JD
Right.
knew
Yeah.
way before because
She tells
Jordan
JD when she's
Jordan
having the baby.
Right.
Sorry.
Yeah. And
of
then
course it's Perry's. Don't tell him. Like,
Yeah.
Right.
oh, it was a shitty thing to do, but
Yeah.
also very on brand
Yeah.
for her. But yeah,
and then
that's
have JD have a huge secret that he can't let slip, and eventually let slip. That was fine. Kind of, I like what Brian was saying about you've already been a dad. It shouldn't be that weird. You're raising this kid because you've realized you love the woman, and you've decided to take her baggage and all. It shouldn't really change anything that the baggage is actually yours.
mhm.
That was fine. I liked that whole storyline. I liked it being his, no matter how long we knew it, and how they use Jack in later seasons, and I think it works out really well to give Cox a compassionate side, slightly. I mean, he's still Dr. Cox, and you know, drinks his drink, and you know that becomes a problem at a time too. But yeah, I thought the Ryan Reynolds stuff was fun and poignant. You know, where he gets them, you know, outside their shell, and you know they make a bad decision and go into work. And I like how he says, and you know, Brian, I have you're adults. You make adult decisions. You know, don't put this on me. You decided to do everything you wanted to do, and when it goes wrong, then don't, you know,
Don't blame.
cry to me about it. You know, so you know, and I like it, and it's true. You know, they made their decisions. It wasn't Ryan Reynolds' fault, or what was his name, Brian?
Spence.
It wasn't Spence's fault. You know, you can always say no, but Spence is really fun, and you know you're going to have a good time.
Yeah, for sure. Let's see. A couple of things, I guess, to point out. Let's see. So we have I mentioned it before, a Dick Van Dyke episode where Dr. Townsend, who is a doctor everybody loves, but he's very old school and can't keep up with stuff. So that kind of sucked that JD had to, you know, rat him out. But hey, if you're still practicing old shit and you're not willing to adapt, then maybe it's time to retire, right? So that was a fun cameo. This is our first appearance of Richard Kind as Harvey Korman, who is a hypochondriac doctor who, you know, or a hypochondriac patient, not a doctor, but that has to be a pain in the ass for any doctor to have to put up with shit like that. But I thought that was an interesting storyline. And then the only other person that kind of has like a semi-recurring role is that we get Franklin, who's a doctor who does, I can't remember what he does at the hospital.
He's in the lab.
He's in the lab, and he has one scene where the janitor sets JD up to make him seem like he's racist towards the Chinese people. So yeah, it's 2002, 2003. So, you know,
Right.
still able to say stuff like that on television. But that's all the guest stars that I have here.
Just by looking at some of the pictures, there's a tall, skinny guy, and I believe he was like on either Mad TV or I don't think it was in Living Color.
Yeah,
And he's got like a mom who's always on his ass and he wants to kill her or something like that. I always think he's funny.
Stewart, I believe his character on Mad
it,
TV was Stewart.
Stewart, you know.
Yeah,
and
he's the one who has the broken penis.
Yeah, you know, and everything they're saying around him like pisses him off. He's just earlier when you were talking about the lawsuit, I thought it was the elbow, or hand, and I know that had to do with Turk and the serve. You had mentioned that. I can
Richard Kind, actually.
Yeah, Richard Kind, but that might not even be this season.
No, it's not. I think that's next season or the season after that.
Yeah, because Juliana Margulies.
Oh yes,
is the lawyer
that's right. Him. That's right. Forgot about that. Oh, the irony of that.
So they did have episode 13. One of the other things they did with that one, that is My Philosophy. They finished that up with music. They have a singer, which is the first time they are all kind of singing. And but the doctor who guest stars in it, it's a Dr. Mitchell. She ends up coming back later. She is the person, she plays Lady, the janitor's eventual wife.
That's
Really?
So she's got this quick, you know, she's got a study that she wants to do, and they have the whole they want a second locker room and that storyline, but it finishes up with her getting an office, and actually Ted had the hots for her when she was Dr. Mitchell. But it was just, she didn't really get pushed the way she did as Lady, but
look, it's not Laverne's sister level of you know, egregiousness, but it's okay. That's funny that's a thing in this. All right. Those are all the major storylines for this season. Let's go with favorite episode of this season. So, Brian, you actually stole mine just now. That is my favorite episode of this season, and because that also has what Aaron has called like the gut punch moment for me, because you don't expect that character to die, even though she's got a heart condition. And the way that they set it up at the beginning of that episode, where she's talking about like what's it like to die, and they talk about how it's just like the end of like a Broadway show. And then that's how they end it. And you've got a lot of random things going on during that time because that's when Turk proposed to Carla and she said no. Or she said not right now. The janitor comes in and sings a part of that as well. So that moment was kind of my gut punch moment for this season because I didn't expect her to die, and she was, like a really nice patient to JD. They had a really good rapport together, and she dies, and like all Dr. Cox has to say is like, she's gone. Are you gonna be okay? And JD's like, yeah, and then that's it. So that is both my favorite episode of this season and the gut punch moment for me this season. So, Aaron, do you have a favorite episode of this season?
I don't know if it's going to be a favorite episode because I love what happens in it. The episode where JD does his surgical episode.
His surgical rotation
Yeah,
episode. Yeah.
one, he's a huge dick in it.
Yes.
He, he'll do whatever he has to do to fit in, which also reinforces or maybe even sets up. I think it reinforces because it's happened before. He's kind of weak morally as a lover, as a brother, and as a friend. Because he basically pisses Turk off by like talking shit about him to get in with the other surgeons. But it's my favorite because it has one of my all-time favorite scenes of when he comes in that day and him and Turk are dressed like pimps.
Yes.
Coming down the hall. Like that's like one of my favorite images of Scrubs.
I would agree with that.
That episode's called My Kingdom.
But that would be it out of this season. I'm sure there's better ones, but like I said, out of when I think of this season, if I look at thumbnails of each episode or whatever, and I see that one, that's my jam right there. And it gets into those quick JD flashes. What would you call them? Fantasies.
Fantasies, yeah.
Because it's really quick, but it's just I don't know. I love that kind of stuff.
Ryan, do you have a favorite episode?
I would have to go with My Big Brother. I thought the introduction of Tom Cavanaugh, they set him up to kind of be the loser brother. And then that final moment, the speech he gives Cox to turn him around, makes the character worthwhile. So I think I would go with that. I don't know if this sounds, I don't really have a gut punch moment for this season compared to the other seasons where there's some of the just gut punch. But I think if I had to say something that brought out an emotion, when Jordan is sitting in the bathroom crying and she's trying to explain, you try and go from depressed to horny 5 times. He's like, I do that on the way to work. So I was but that moment in where he's, it's the competition between Heather Locklear and Jordan. And it's comedy when he doesn't take Heather Locklear over pregnant. So, I mean, come on. But
Fair.
But yeah, it was just, I guess that's where I would go for a gut punch moment.
Okay. Aaron, did you have a gut punch moment? You kind of mentioned a little bit about the Tasty Coma wife's husband, some of that stuff, but was there anything else that kind of stood out to you?
Not that comes up right now. You guys have done a good job. I'm trying to think of something really quick. Even a little more of the emotional stuff, with Paul, he's trying to be sincere, and I guess him and Elliot breaking up, maybe realizing that he is who he is and she is, they're not going to work out, even though I wasn't super invested in it anyway, because they kind of showed him as being a little controlling and wanting to change her, have her do things certain ways. But no, not really a gut punch, just more emotion than usually 30-minute sitcoms have. So
yeah,
and I think they sprinkled that in throughout a lot of these episodes.
I mean, her going through her CD collection saying, I love you too. And he hears that. It's like, oh, I love you.
I think one other gut punch moment I'll point out is that so Elliot is just shit on a lot throughout the course of this season. So there's one scene where she she gets like she gets an apartment, but her moving truck gets stolen. So the scene where JD goes and just hangs out with her and she's just like going through all the stuff that she lost. And it's actually like I think the reason why that was kind of a gut punch moment for me is because what JD says during that is like, hey, even if it breaks your heart, sometimes you just got to be there for people. I'm like, oh, JD, you're a
Yeah.
good guy. But
So, I'd give that more of an aw, but
yeah, yeah. So, a gut punch adjacent thing. So, all right. Or before we get to final thoughts, favorite character of the season.
Aaron,
I'm thinking who I want to go with favorite. I gotta, not that there was a huge arc, but I gotta go with Cox.
Mm.
He's gonna end up, if we break it down season by season, if I kept a running total, he's gonna, be it several times. I did like how he wasn't just the cynical old, not that he's the oldest, but cynical old man that just is, everybody's bastards covered in, bastards filled with bastard. When he chooses his ex-wife over the hottie, Heather Locklear, it showed the growth, it showed the emotion, it showed that, he's not just one dimensional drink, run the show however I want kind of doctor or lead, alpha male. There you go. That's what I think I was looking for. He had a soft side too,
Mm.
and he can be emotionally there. So I'm gonna go with Cox for this season, just because of the kid and sticking with Jordan.
I'm actually going to go so far as to say is that I don't think it can be anyone else but Cox. Like,
yeah,
because
Whew, got it right.
yeah, because all the other characters they have stuff going on, but nobody has like the heavy shit that Perry has to go through this season. So I think that's a clean sweep that Dr. Cox was best character of this season. So good call out for that, Aaron. Do we have any final thoughts on season 2 before we wrap up?
Brian.
good sophomore season. They hit all the right marks. And because of the season, they, I'm sure get picked up for longer and can continue more invested in all the characters. And, it just keeps building from there.
Yeah, like I said, starting off with a banger of a first episode with the music, the new open, all of that, building on who they can get. And I'm sure some of it was buzz about how the first episode went, and maybe it's a cool place to work and who the producer is. But starting to get a different tier of cameos,
Guest stars,
cameos, what we call them, guest actors. Like I said before, starting some of the long running tropes, for lack of a better term. It was a great second season, I thought.
Talking about this with you two just solidifies that this is my favorite season. It does not have my favorite episode. That's next season. So, tease out there for those when we record about season 3. But this has a lot of great episodes for me. Aaron, you pointed it out that there was a lot of jokes and a lot of tropes that start this season. So that was good. I don't know. I just also thought that this season was funnier as well. And that's something that shows like tremendous growth for an episode or for a season. One of my favorite jokes, and I'm pretty sure this happens this season, is when JD says to Turk, "Why so sad, chocolate bear?" And just little things like that. I appreciated with the jokes and the humor. So yeah, I think this just solidifies that this is my favorite season in totality for the entire run of the series. So thanks for confirming that, guys. All right, cool. Well, that'll do it for season 2. Looking forward to season 3 thoughts coming up soon. So appreciate your time, guys, especially on this Super Bowl Sunday where the Eagles kick the shit out of the Chiefs. So That's fun. Guys, do you have anything that you want to plug or anything that you want to or where can the people find you if they want to continue the conversation?
They can just find me on SPDM, this podcast whenever you'll talk to me, and then the a couple other. I do one for the with the movies, the BTB, and a Star Wars one. But if you want to find me, this is where you find me. The part of the SPDM crew.
Cool. Appreciate that. Brian?
Yes, on spdmcrew.com. You can find the Comics Corner podcast with Beelar and Danny P. Comes out every Wednesday. A couple of guys talking about comic books, the new stuff that's coming out, and what we've been reading.
Highly recommended. I like
Cool.
it a lot.
Cool. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. And looking forward to season 3 coming up soon. So that's going to do it for this episode of SPDM TV. Be sure to like, rate, and subscribe to anything and everything SPDM Crew, wherever you get your podcast. Join us on social media on Facebook, Instagram, X, Threads, YouTube, and Blue Sky at SPDM Crew. Check out our website, spdmcrew.com. Thanks for the plug on that, Brian. I will give you your $5 later. Shout out to HiFlyer Creative Studios for making our awesome logo. Greatly appreciate their support. And if you have any marketing, logo, or brand standard needs, contact them at HiFlyerCreative.com. Check out the other shit on our network. We've got a lot of great shows involving movies, comics, physical media. This is actually the 4th podcast I recorded today, so lots of stuff that we have coming up. So check out the other stuff on our network. We've got a lot of great stuff. And finally, if you've got a podcast idea or you're interested in being part of the SPDM crew as a guest or collaborating, email us at spdmcrew@gmail.com. Until next time, happy watching, friends.